the I'm back. Sorry I've been away. It's been a long couple weeks. So I hope you enjoy this. We're going to talk about Brian Lumley and the Necroscope series and Clive Barker and several of his works, since they are similar in context. Okay. And don't forget, as always, we are brought to you by King's Cannabiz. And again, I do apologize for being away. Haven't been on in a few weeks. Unfortunately, yes, I've got the dreaded COVID-19. So, kind of been self-isolated. Enjoying not the first week anyway, but it's a slow go. So anybody who gets it, please stay home. Stay home anyway and be kind to each other. And if you have extra supplies, please share them with family and your friends. We all need to stick together on this so we all get better. It was a little crazy for sure. Yeah, not cool. That is for sure. I never want to go through anything like this ever again. I wanted to die. But thankfully I wasn't totally hospitalized for this, so that's a good thing. So, don't panic. Most of the cases are the mild sort, maybe a little bad, but thank God I wasn't, really laid up in the hospital somewhere. So, and good thing this is, a podcast for sure. So, and I want to thank, and I'll thank her tomorrow, because Michelle and I will be on Planet Walking Dead tomorrow evening. That's all crazy, isn't it? They're going to end that show a week early due to this virus. So, just hang in there. And I want to thank Michelle, for taking over for me while I was laid up. So anyway, let me get these. I got to send a notification, so bear with me. And like I said, we're going to talk about Brian Lumley. If you have not heard of him, he did the Necroscope series. It is a wonderful, wonderful a series of books. It's a combination of a lot of things. Okay, I'm busy typing in here. But I think anybody who likes a Clive Barker type book and everything would absolutely love this series. And I'm going to reread it because it has been a while. But it was so good. I could not wait for each book to come out. That's what it was like. So... Okay, getting there. Almost done here. I hope you're all doing well out there and following what you're supposed to be doing. I mean, from what I've read of some of these people out there, it's absolute. These people are crazy. And those beachgoers down in Florida, really? Come on. Not a good thing. So do what you need to do. If you don't have to go out, don't. So, and don't, go crazy on things. Save some for other people. I know this one girl is a friend of my daughter's. She has an 18-inch space in her kitchen you walk through because everything is full of food. She was scared and panicked and hoarded. So I don't know. I don't know what she's going to do with all this. It's crazy. But please don't panic. The grocery stores will stay open. The truckers are delivering. So, we'll get through it. Okay, almost done here. Okay, almost done. You'd think we could do this ahead of time, but we have to wait till we're actually on to share it. So, just give me a minute here. I've been wanting to discuss this book for a while now, as you all know, because I keep bringing it up. So we're finally going to do it. Yay! Yay! This weather's kind of crazy too. What happened to spring? I don't know where that went. We had snow in the ground the other morning. It was crazy. Then it rained. I don't know. I can't wait till it warms up. Okay. One more thing. And we will get to it. There we are. One more. Michelle did an excellent job of filling in. I really appreciate it. I just could not do it. I keep falling asleep. That's part of the problem. I do. It's horrible. You're just so tired and weak that you want to, it's your body's way of helping to heal it. So I'm going to type in here a bit. Join me in the chat. I want to know your thoughts on these books if you've read it. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, Brian Lumley is an English author of horror fiction. He came to prominence in the 1970s, writing and I can never pronounce the name, y'all know it, the Mythos, created by American writer H.P. Lovecraft, of course, but featuring the new character Titus Crow, and went on to greater fame in the 80s with the best-selling Necroscope series. And these books are based on a central character of Harry Keogh, who he communicates with the spirits of the dead. Now, he can't see them, but he can talk to them in his mind. He's like this light in the darkness to the dead. He's just great. And a list of his favorite horror stories, which is, of course, not complete by any means, includes M.R. James' Count Magnus, Robert E. Howard's The Black Stone, William Hope Hodgins' The Voice in the Night, and, of course, H.P. Lovecraft's The Haunter of the Dark and The Color Out of Space. He was born in 1937. He's got the Bram Stoker Award for Lifetime Achievement, World Horror Convention Grand Master Award. He's just these books. I can't even. You have to read them. You really do. He's created this worlds, I should say. He was amazing. They're amazing. He served 22 years as a MP and served in many of the Cold War hotspots. So there you go. Let's see. And it's kind of like a vampire series, but they're not of this world. It's just so good. I just can't. If that's been translated into 10 languages, sold over 1 million copies worldwide. It's just amazing. Just amazing. Okay, let's get to the Necroscope. And this is just so good. That's what they call Harry Keogh. He is a necroscope. He talks to the dead. And in the first book, the Necroscope, he has to stop this necromancer, Boris Dragosani, from realizing his plans of world domination. The awesome, outstanding world building and story detailed backstories are so good. They're so interesting. I mean, without going overboard. You don't want to stop reading the series. Absolutely. It was one of the. I really, 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 really enjoyed it. It was that good. It's kind of billed as a vampire novel. The series is a vampire series, but actually it's only, I would say, about 30% about vampires. The rest is a cornucopia of the paranormal, secret branches of the government, and gore. Can't forget the gore, of course not. This story alternates between two main characters, Harry Keogh in Great Britain and Boris Dragosani in Cold War Russia. We meet Harry when he is a child, and he discovers his ability to talk to the dead. And it turns out they have a lot to say, actually. And they're terribly lonely. They have nobody to talk to, right? So Harry labels himself a necroscope. And through this ability, he's able to learn many things, like how to fight or do complex math. As he gets older, he uses his ability to find even more spectacular and supernatural talents, all which lead him to learn about a secret branch of the British government, led by Keenan Gromley and Alec Kyle, which uses as agents people with various ESP abilities. But meanwhile, Boris Dragosani is similarly a member of the Russian special branch that also specializes in those kind of powers. But Dragosani is a necromancer who can also read the thoughts of the dead, though his particular procedure uses some seriously gruesome manipulations. He's got to have their body, and that's how he finds out things. Although closely watched by his boss, Gregor Borowitz, Dragosani has dreams of world domination. For better or worse, and of course part of the fun is figuring out which, Dragosani maintains a relationship with an undead vampire, Tibor Ferenci, to further his aims. And the only thing standing in his way at this point is Harry. This is only a small skimming of the surface of the deep and interesting plot and background that Lumley has created in this series. Necroscope stands as a great example of the world building, amazing world building. Not only is this a world of vampires, which is pronounced Vampiri, and I'll spell that out because that is what they are called, Vampiri. Say that 10 times, right? And that's what they're called. But they live in another world, which we'll get to in the other books, which is a necroscope too, Vampiri. But anyway, the world of vampires, ESP, and speaking to the dead, totally believable. And the way, it's described in the book, it's like he's this candle, a light to the dead. It's, in the darkness, they see him, they feel him, and they can talk to him. It's also rich and deeply fascinating. He spends many pages of detailed backgrounds of the characters, which is great because you really get to know these characters. Excuse me, still coughing. And either love or hate them. So there you go, these characters. Everyone has a background story in this. Everybody. And if there wasn't so outstanding about the backgrounds and the world he built and everything, it wouldn't even be able to get through the book, I don't think. He exceeds that cut line and makes these side roads more than worth the trip. And actually, you could believe vampires do exist. Lumley mixes lore and legend with common sense and a bit of the macabre to make it so. You can feel the tension build as situations coalesce into dramatic and perfectly paced crescendos. These are the stories within the stories that are neatly wrapped up and, of course, contribute to the greater plot of the book. You feel for the good characters and loathe the evil ones. The similarities between Keogh and Dragosani, except that one is a champion of the dead and the other is a user of them, drive this home and give clear heroes and villains. The book completely will envelop you as a reader. Seriously. It's just so good. I can't get, express enough how good these books are. And there are he has some after books about these, but the main ones 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 actual books in the series. Just so good. They're just so good. They really are. And you won't forget these characters, that is for sure. It stays with you. It really does. And I absolutely love them. Okay. Book 2 is... This was released in 1988. Actually, he's in the genre of horror, science fiction, and adventure. It's like all of it put together, and it is fantastic. So you're going to meet the Vampiri. And, of course, you feel for Harry. It's so sad. And this book is about the spirit of Harry Keogh resides in his son, Harry Jr. When his infant son sleeps, Harry can roam the continuum. He speaks to all these... he spoke to Mobius about the Mobius continuum in Necroscope. And he talks like he's the greatest mathematician ever. I'm trying to get more on it. I can't, if I had the book in front of me, because I did put them away because I have no room I have totes full of books. I just want to give you a little background on it. Okay, he fights his Dragosani because he takes the dead. He can cause them pain even though they're dead because he's a necromancer. There's Dragosani, and he gets the secrets out of him. But Harry goes and travels to different to find out about like the math. He He goes to talk to Mobius at his grave. It's better if he goes to the graves and speaks, mind speaks with them. They have a lot to say, and he teaches him the Mobius continuum, and he finds, he can travel this continuum. And when he does die, which is so sad, it's like, damn you, he finds he can still do that. He can still affect things. And he's doing that through his son, and his son can, travel also now, his infant son. So it's kind of continues on in him. And he fights Dragosan. Of course, he wins, but there's still other things out there as we find out. And in the second book of Vampiri, it follows directly from the Necroscope where it finishes, and where it ends, the other one starts. Revisits old characters, further improving on and immersing you in the world of ESP and monsters. Harry Keogh, the Necroscope, the original, has lost his body, but his mind continues to live, inhabiting the body of his newborn son and using the Mobius continuum to reach out and speak to his friends in E-Branch. And why does he need to speak with them? Because there's a new threat in the world. Tibor Ferenci, the original vampire from the first book, has been up to his old tricks again. And where Boris Dragosani received the seed and became a vampiri in his own right, so a new vampire has been born. A pregnant woman faints on the grave while Tibor lay imprisoned for eternity. He sends forth his essence, exploring her body inside and out. Discovering she is pregnant, Tibor puts some of himself into the woman and takes the unborn child, Julian. And the unborn baby grows up, knowing himself different from others. He tests out his dreams and nightmares, discovering who he really is, what he is, and who his real father is. The ESPers keep him under surveillance, watching and making sure of what he's doing. What follows is a very scary ride as Julian learns he is trapped in the body of an infant son and sets out to tear him to pieces. This book really picks up the pace from the first one. New characters are into play and fleshes out the existing characters. Wait a minute. Excuse me. The world becomes darker than it already did, thanks to Julian, the good old boy next door. You can really start to see where Brian is going with this story. It's both revisiting the history of Tibor and his beginnings, of Fedor Ferenci, the original vampire who created Tibor. And you start to wonder more about him and you're asking questions as you're reading this book, and it answers questions that the first book didn't answer. Reading the book, you have to go out and buy the third in the series. You just have to do this. You can't not read the rest of them. It's just so good. They discover this other world. It's crazy, but just so good, so good, so good. So that continues on. We find more about, Tibor's beginnings, how he became a vampiri. And they have these Aries in this other world. It's crazy, but you can picture this in your mind. It's so, so good. And we move on to the Necroscope 3 book, The Source. And of course, they found out more about these vampiri. And it just continues on. Okay. And I didn't know they made a movie. Go figure that. That's kind of crazy. Crazy. Okay. So Harry is back, and now he's got a body again. And how that came about is a sad tale you need to read about in Necroscope 2, okay? You'd think all would be well now. Harry could get back with his wife and son, and maybe life could somewhat normalize. Yeah, it's pretty sad what happens, but he does get a body back, and but it's great that he is back. And maybe he could live somewhat normal life. Though Harry, of course, still hears from the dead and can travel through time and space on the Mobius continuum. So is Harry ever going to be really normal or have a normal sort of life? Even if he did, he can't, because his wife and son have disappeared. He can't find them anywhere. He's been looking for 8 years and knows they're not in this world and they're not dead. So where are they? And the answer to this, as Harry will find out, has to do with the secret Russian military base. Well, it's supposed to be secret. Yeah, as they all are, right? But the British know about it and have sent their agent, Jazz Simmons, to investigate. Something really weird is going on there, and surprise, it involves vampires, of course, or the Vampiri. The Russians have accidentally discovered and are hiding the source world of the vampires. And could Harry's family be in that world? He's going to find out. And in the meantime, the vampires are planning an invasion of the human world, and they are being unwittingly assisted by Russian scientists. This book brings a twist to the story. This is the first time we've heard of a source world where vampires lord over the other unfortunate denizens of that surreal place. It's really good how they do this, though, and what this world is like. You have the new characters, and there's a Russian woman named Zach. They're okay. It's not the kind of series for readers who need the author to get to the point. That's not going to happen. You have a lot of descriptive passages, and you can actually picture this world in your mind, this barren world where these Ares are, and they're huge, where these Vampiri live. And they live, they just torture and maim and all kinds of good stuff there. This traces the battle between Harry and the horrifying Vampiri on their home ground. It's an alien landscape of looming Ares and possible cliffs, ravenous vampire beasts, of course. And these, it was in the way to get there is in Russia's Ural Mountains. They hide a deadly secret, a supernatural portal, which, of course, we talk about on some of our shows. So there you go. And this takes them to the country of the vampires. Soviet scientists and ESP-powered spies and a secret military base study the porthole and the powerfully evil creatures that emerge from it, intent on ravaging mankind. When Jazz Simmons, a British agent, is sent to infiltrate the base, he is captured by the KGB espionage squad and forced through the portal. His last message tells Harry that the vampires are preparing for a mass invasion, and he has only one option: to strike first. He must carry the human-vampire war to their own lands. But his strongest psychic power will be useless there. Well, good is the power to summon the dead in a country where nothing ever dies, where every man, woman, and child become half-dead servants of the Whamphiri. Ooh, gets good. It really does get good. So you're introduced to more spies and espionage, and I like E-Branch. E-Branch is cool. Unfortunately, one of the agents, one of his friends, dies, and he takes over his body. So you have that going. There's a lot going on in these books. And again, the descriptions he has of this world is amazing. It's just, you can just picture this scenario in your head of this barren wasteland. You know, there's really no sun. It's kind of a hazy dusk all the time. And this is where they live and sleep and eat. So there you go. The next book in the series to continue on is Dead Speak. And really good. This was published in 1990 in paperback. It's the fourth book in the Necroscope series. And this pays particular homage to Bram Stoker's Dracula, to be honest. It features a multinational team of vampire hunters who rely on the latest technology to scour Europe, to foil a master vampire's plans to move his nest and expand his troop of thralls. The hunt's conclusion takes Harry into misty Transylvania, where he fights the resurrected Janos Ferengi in his ruined castle for possession of his lady love, Sandra. Lumley, of course, retains much of the melodrama that Stoker reveled in, with an increased explicitness suited to the present day. The traditions are there. Vampires can change form, are vulnerable to silver and garlic, and must receive permission before entering a dwelling or a mine. Lumley provides more rationale than Stoker, though, and he also secularizes the legend, toning down the original's Christian aversion to blasphemous dialogue. He also approaches the scope, adding much to the story of psychic ability centered on, of course, the ultra-secret E-Branch, and, of course, the Russian counter group to this. This is kind of the same. It's a division of Britain's Secret Service. Harry's E-Branch teammates give the novel kind of an Ian Fleming, Stephen King crossover. That is a great way to explain this. It's just great. He tells a fast-moving tale of the primal horror of an undead parasite, and it's definitely worthy of Stoker's original. Yeah, he kind of pays homage to Bram Stoker in this, and it's really good. It's just really good. What happened at the beginning of this is that his son, Harry is back, but his son, to defend his badass vampire self, took away Harry's powers and returned him to Earth. That was kind of crazy. Another vampire is ascending, one with the capability and know-how to survive in our modern age. A vampire who can foretell the future, who is the blood son of Fëdor Ferengi. These books are just great. And the fact that there's like a Cold War era thriller and vampires as ultra monster horror story, it just all comes together, and you wouldn't think to combine all of this together. But it's a lot of fun to read. Janos is the worst yet of the vampires. He raped his mother repeatedly, hated his father, and this is why it has kind of an explicit tag on it. Allowed himself to be killed to survive until today, the present day, takes over a blood relative's body, and then just plays mind games with Harry. And each vampire gets worse in the books as it goes on, and it is just great. It's like an evolvement of these vampires. They get worse and worse. Vampires are horrible, and these books show just what horrible monsters they are. What you kind of look forward to is Harry killing Harry Jr. The little brat is a necroscope vampire. How dangerous is that, right? It doesn't matter, and he's a super genius on top of it. It doesn't care. It doesn't matter how good, strong, or noble his intentions are. He is a vampire, and it will show. And Brian Lumley seems to like making Harry suffer. And, a lot of readers like to see him suffer. I liked Harry. I thought he was great. Having him kill his own son that he sacrificed so much would just, it hits a spot. It really does. So, dead speak. It gets crazier and crazier. You have dead speak. Now you're going to have dead spawn, which is book 5. A lot of people have not read Brian Lumleys Necroscope series, and you really need to. If you love horror, this is one of the books I recommend. I really do. I just think they go on and get better and better, if you ask me. And this whole masterwork was completed in 11 years, and it's far longer than volumes projected by Rowling's Harry Potter series or S.K.'s Dark Tower epic. But not quite possibly as long as Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, which is another fantastic series to read. Dead Spawn was published in 1991, and I think it's one of the best in the series. It expands upon Dead Speak. It gives giving fearless vampire hunter Harry richer depths while rounding out the first Necroscope quintet before entering the Blood Brothers trilogy, and then the Lost Years, and then the final J. Cutter E. Branch quartet of volumes. From a truly distant Lovecraftian dimension, Lumley's Wamphiri are far stronger, more vicious, and bloodthirsty than any vampires dreamed up by American authors. And yet, on a literary level, they are presented in far less distinctive prose. Like Kim Newman's British Vampires. And these two horror authors have strongly distinct fan bases. One thrives on the humorless pulp, and one that loves flair and fun. And audience that never cross over. So you're delving into even more of Dead Speak, basically. So definitely, once you end the one book, it goes right into the other. There, you can pick up right where you left off. That's part of what I like about this series. There's no big time jump break in there. And there, in this book, there's a maniacal murderer on the loose, brutally slaughtering young women with a ferocity that rivals that of vampires Harry Kigo has spent his life combating. The Necroscope's been asked to solve the crimes, asked by the dead spirits of the madman's victims. He cannot turn down a request from the dead, even if it costs him his soul. In the climatic battle with the vampires, mankind prevailed and purged the vampires from Earth. Thanks to Harry, his team of psychically gifted spies, and Fëdor Ferengi's long-dead father of the world's vampires, who betrayed his own kind. But Harry's alliance with Fëdor has a terrible cost. Harry's very humanity is under attack from the vampire evil coiled in his mind. Oh no! It's just great. These series are just really good. Okay. And the covers of these books are great, too. They're just great. I love it. So again, we know that Harry is a necroscope, speaks to the dead. And he can't he can't turn down the requests of them either. Unfortunately for Harry, his talent works both ways. The maniacal murderer is on the loose, and the dead spirits of the madman's victims reach out for help to Harry. They cry out for help. After the battles, the dead speak. Harry has regained his necroscopic abilities. He can once again travel in between places and time via the marvelous mathematics of the Mobius continuum. He can once again speak with the dead. But his bargain with Fëdor Ferengi, father of the vampires, has sown the seed of Harry's own downfall, a vampire seed. Deep in the recesses of Harry's mind grows a vampire that some might be the greatest vampire of all. But now Harry is shunned by everyone, the living and the dead, except for the tortured victims of the serial killer who cry out for justice. It's high tide in the sea of blood, but for Harry the tide has finally turned. For even as he pursues the serial killer, he also fights the spawn inside him. His greatest battle is with himself and the plague he carries, for the necroscope is now a vampire. Ooh! Yeah, it's just totally awesome. And then you go to Blood Brother, which is book 6. They have all these twists and turns, and of course okay. So, Blood Brothers, interesting. That was also a movie, believe it or not. I didn't even know that. That's kind of crazy. I didn't know that. Interesting. Okay, we'll go over the movies after a bit. Kind of crazy. And interesting. Okay. No, it's kind of crazy. Okay. Blood Brothers is good. This is about Harry's twin sons. At the end of Dead Spawn, Harry mistakenly thought he had destroyed all of these creatures. Now Harry's twin sons must take on a new breed of vampire. Crazy. It's now shifting. Of course, these books, you can get them in hardcover or paperback. Okay. You have Starside and of this world, and Sunside. You have Sunside and Starside. You have the light and dark of this Wham Fury world. Vampire Hunter Keo, the Necroscope called a Highlander, and sometimes Dweller Sire, can talk with the dead and move effortlessly through time and space. Of course, in the last one, Harry battled the near-immortal masters of Starside, the Wham Fury, and drove what remained of them to the Icelands. The sun now circles from Sunside to Starside, but Harry is ailing, for he himself has been corrupted by the Wham Fury evil and been robbed of his ability to enter the forbidden Mobius continuum. He drifts uselessly as a ship with neither sail nor rudder, a waterlogged hulk rocked and slowly twirled by mathematical tides and algebraic whirlpools. Are the Wham Fury truly gone? No, they still live in hidden vampire caverns and, strangely refined by unclean vampire science, have come forth to prey on innocent humankind. Harry's twin sons inherit some of his powers and may save mankind, but during a vampire raid, one has been snatched by a flying monster, and the other must find him, so that together they may fight the revived evils of the Wham Fury. Hair-tearing madness, death and high, purple. But it's just what Lumley's faithful have ordered. And up next, the Blood Wars. So these books take you through a full journey. It's just amazing. And if you can get a hold of these, please do. Because it just... in between there, and you don't have to read it in order, the last Airy. And usually a lot of people, that came out later after Invaders. But you can read it in between there. That's where they put it. But you can read it after that if you wish. You don't have to read that one order. So we're going to go to Blood Wars. Okay. And of course you can get them on Amazon or wherever. but you need to read these books. Excuse me for a second. I had to get something to drink there. Crazy. Okay. Hit the wrong one. Duh. Okay. They're the twin sons of Harry Keogh, the Necroscope. They have taken very different paths. Crazy. Damn it. I think most of you would really enjoy, especially if you're a horror fan, and vampires. These vampires are totally different from anything you've seen. And his twin sons are awesome. They're really, really good. Okay. Nathan takes his path as his father's powers to talk to the dead, to travel instantly through space. Like Harry, this new necroscope fights evil wherever he finds it. His twin, Nestor, has become the most horrifyingly evil imaginable. A shape-shifting, blood-sucking Whamphiri lord devoid of human feelings. Nestor and his companion, the beautiful, malevolent Ratha the Risen, hunt without mercy. The battle between the brothers mirrors a war between vampires and humans. On mankind's side, terrible weapons brought from Earth by Nathan's allies, but the vampires are numerous and powerful, and neither side has a clear advantage until Nathan and his legions of the dead discover a way to destroy the vampires forever. In the midst of a titanic battle, Nathan makes a desperate move that forever changes millions of lives and two worlds, the vampire world and Earth. Nestor gets taken, and Nathan is like the mirror image of his father Harry. He fights for the good in that, but Nestor was taken and changed, and he is merciless to say the least. There's this huge battle on the Whamphiri world, and it just gets totally insane with these. And then we have invaders, and of course that should be pretty explicit. Tells you basically what it's about. There's three great vampires, two lords and a lady. They arrive on an unsuspecting Earth that teems with defenseless humans. Easy prey for the marauding vampires. But humanity has defenders. Though the necroscope is gone, the physically gifted men and women of E-Branch move swiftly against the infestation. Jake Cutter is running for his life through the streets of Turin when he vanishes, appearing moments later inside the triply locked Harry's room in E-Branch's London headquarters. Jake's dreams are very strange, filled with the voices of the dead, the great majority, as they are known as. The necroscope Harry, even a dead vampire. He hears them all, but he doesn't truly understand. If Jake is a new necroscope, he has to learn fast how to control his powers and speak to the dead. E-Branch, with the reluctant Jake along for the ride, is about to go head-to-head with Malinary the Mind, a vampire lord whose psychic abilities are second to none. But the dead don't trust Jake, not like they trusted Harry. Jake's got personal revenge on his mind, and he's spending too much time talking to that dead vampire. He's got to start thinking about the future, or he won't have one. Nice. So Jake becomes a new hero in this series. They have no choice. They need somebody. They have to have somebody. And he just gets taken out and kidnapped, basically. And there he is. And he's like, what the freaking? It's great. Okay, then you have the Defilers. This is the 12th volume. And you really need almost a necropedia, footsteps of the dead, to help keep all the vampiri and their factums and straight in the parallel universe of bloodsucker invaders, and of course vampire hunters. The principal is the now dead but actually undead necroscope Harry and today's Jake Cutter. Are themselves composed of so many splintered figures, often evil, that even while reminding old readers of arcs in the series plotline, Harry's Keogh's dead. There was this big thing in E-Branch room where these splinters they just came flying through between time and space and just nailed the wall. He splintered into these golden darts in other universes. One dart has landed in the dreaming subconscious of Jake Cutter. He's a leading vampire killer with, of course, E-Branch. He also has an added secret. Aside from having a remnant of Harry in him, he also houses a fragment of Korath Mindstraw, an important vampire killed by Harry in Romania, whose knowledge allows Jake to travel through the Mobius Continuum and speak with the dead. Korath is infected by the powers of Malinary, Lord of the Vampiri. And let's not forget hideously beautiful Vedvara, hag rival of Malinary, who eats wild honey and wolf hearts, and adds a sprinkle of lust to an otherwise bloodthirsty thriller. Now, as if the Vampiri aren't enough to deal with, Jake seeks the blood of mafioso Luigi Castellano, whose mob killed his girlfriend, and whose members are tied to the alien parallel dimension. So you got a lot going on here. The Defilers. They are just crazy people, crazy vampires. And then you have Then you have Necroscope Avengers. Crazy. I never connected the name. But anyway, this is the 13th volume. And it's the last of the trilogy of Invaders and the Dividers, and then you have Avengers. So, and then, and the series swells past mere human ability. A cross-dimensional multi-map. All these astral planes touched on by Brian Lumley. It's crazy. The original Necroscope and top vampire killer, Harry, dies and splits into several beings, including bits of the evil Lord Malinari, who has his own independent counterpart as well. Harry's spot in Britain's top secret E-branch has been taken over by young new Necroscope Jake Cutter, who traces Malinari to Australia and destroys his fungi garden. It was spawning spores to enslave humanity. You get a whiff of this fungi, and you will be taken over, or you will be enslaved. Although the mind escapes Lord Malinari and Lady Vivara, the hag with the jewel green eyes, now take up plans to bring humanity into lasting blood loss and darkness forever, enjoining it to the pre-dawn vampire world of Starside Sunside, and using Manhattan's greatest building as its eyrie, after lacquering it black inside and out to block out sunlight. And we learn Jake's secret. His mind bears vampire intelligence. Now on the run, Malinari and Vivara take over a gigantic ultramodern pleasure cruiser and soon infect its entire population with fear of sunlight. Should E-branch sink the ship, the very lifeboats are worth millions. But later, mentalist Ben Trask takes over much of the novel, and with a task force of E-branch Avengers, they pursue them and a host of girls from the vampirized cruise ship. Will Jake's secret vampire intelligence become a power against Malinari? Crazy. You have to read it to find out, now won't you? Okay, we're going to go back to the one that you could read, either at the end of the series or after Blood Brothers, and it's called The Last Eyrie. And y'all know what Aries are. They're like where eagles nest up in the Aries. Okay, and this has Nathan in it. Nathan and of course, if I wouldn't put that on the end of it, it would help. So you have Nathan and Nestor. Nathan is they're Nestor and Nathan Kiklu. They're the twin sons of Harry the Necroscope. United by blood, they also share some of their father's awesome powers. But what they do with those gifts cannot be more different. Nathan takes up the struggle against the metaphoric vampires, while Nestor, who's fascinated by the vampire's eerie evil, has become his twin's worst nightmare, a Wamphiri lord. Harry Kigo's sons have become the bitterest of enemies, each determined to destroy the other. When next they meet, one will surely die. So that's kind of in between the books. He then continues on with several other books, which I have, but I haven't read a couple of them. You have The Touch, which is interesting. The Touch, Harry and the Pirates, and The Plague, and the Mobius Murders. So those are extra books in the series. You have The Touch, Harry and the Pirates, The Plague, and the Mobius Murders. Interesting, right? So to sum up, what this has been all about is Harry Keogh. He's the Necroscope, and he passes it down to sons. Two of them become evil out of all of them. His first infant son he ended up having to kill, and of course then Nestor and Nathan. Harry does die, but he is able to project himself basically into different parallel universes, one with Jake Cutter, who becomes the next Necroscope. But he has another agenda. And then you're introduced to Ben Trask, and the Wham Theory themselves are totally freaking awesome. And just their description of them is crazy. They're ugly, they're big. They have Ares in this alternate dimension through a portal. In Russia, you have the Russian complement to E-branch. And, all this evil coming forward. And then some of them try. You have your lords, you have your ladies of the Wham Theory. And they want to take over Earth. Let's face it, they just want to enslave everybody. It's kind of crazy. It gets totally crazy. But I think if you read the series, you will enjoy it. It's vampires like you have never read before. So he pays homage, and it has kind of a Lovecraftian influence, and of course the homage to Bram Stoker. So I highly, highly recommend this series. I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. Okay, now we are on to, we're going to talk about Clive Barker a little bit, some of his works. Who doesn't know Clive Barker, right? Who's also a playwright. He's a playwright, basically. He was born October 5th, 1952. He's an English playwright, novelist, film director, and visual artist. He came to prominence in the mid-'80s with a series of short stories, The Books of Blood, which established him as a leading horror writer. He has since written many novels and other works, and his fiction has been adapted into films. Of course, we all know Hellraiser and the Candyman series. He was also the executive producer of the film Gods and Monsters. So there you go. Horror fantasy is his genre. So, he's pretty much done it all. It's interesting about Gods and Monsters because I did not know that. So we're going to talk about several of his books. We're going to talk about The Great and Secret Show. Some of his more well-known books. I don't know anybody offhand who hasn't read any Clive Barker. I really don't know anybody. In this epic new novel, Barker describes the thoughts of one of his characters as barbaric and baroque. And the words fairly sum up the book. Down and outer, Randolph Jaffe works in the dead letter office in Omaha. Reading through the mass of mail, he finds clues to an alternative reality, the laws of which are called the art. Mastering these principles, he becomes powerful but evil, and presses into service a man named Fletcher, who synthesizes a transforming drug, the Nuncio. Later understanding the corrupt nature of his creation, Fletcher rebels against Jaffe, and the two, now demigods, engage in a cosmic struggle. To enlist allies, each sires off offspring, using the seed of mortal men, and their spiritual children help to carry on the bizarre battle. Though diverting, the novel is something of a potboiler, and despite its pervasive horrific imagery, does it frighten you? Or does it frighten us? Or to suspend disbelief? This is the first book of a projected trilogy. So there you go, The Great and Secret Show. And it became, this series of books became popularly known as the Art Trilogy. Of course, the trilogy is unfinished at this point. You have The Great and Secret Show, and the second book, Everville, which was published in 1994 and delves even deeper into the loreness of quiddity and the art. The third book is in the works, but it's going to be a big book, and Barker has a lot on his plate, of course. The Great and Secret Show is a big book in and of itself, 700 pages. Barker said it was one of the harder books he had ever had to write. Unlike The Damnation Game and many of his more straightforwardly horror novels. Did he ever write such a thing as your typical horror novel? I don't know. It focuses on a cast of 3 or 4 central characters. The Great and Secret Show has a cast of hundreds and juggles them all with mind-blowing narrative control. That sums up Clive Barker pretty well, I think. The Great and Secret Show is kind of divided into 7 parts, and each feels unique. We move from a story of an insignificant but secretly corrupt man's rise to demigodhood through a discovery of the secret world around him, to a war between 2 evolved beings, to a tale of 4 virgins collectively assaulted by a force beyond their control, to the story of a quiet American town's demise and lost dreams, to a Lovecraftian narrative of an impending confrontation with eldritch beings. And somehow they are all intimately connected. And critics have been divided about this book for many years. It's both horror and epic fantasy. And either one or the other won't like it, maybe. It's possible. But I chose Clive Barker because of his similarity with the other worlds in connection, again, with Brian Lumley. So the sense of wonder and mystery are evoking and dazzling. So, The Great and Secret Show. Another one of his, of course, is The Damnation Game. And I like I said, I don't know anybody who hasn't read at least one Clive Barker book. The Damnation Game is the first and still the finest of his literary accomplishments. It's arguably the pinnacle of the genre and certainly one of the most original literary collections ever penned. Those who follow the dark genres know that much of the current offerings are knockoffs of seminal themes created by trailblazers such as Lovecraft and Hawthorne, the great romancer. How many times can the monkey's paw be bastardized? Thankfully, true Puritans have Clive Barker, a writer who will take their hand and lead us down paths we never before traveled. His mastery of the language raises his mesmerizing tales to truly literary novels. The first chapter of The Damnation Game alone is worth the price of the novel and will permanently imprint itself upon a reader's mind. Barker's ability to marry the real and the imaginary lures readers into a grotesque version of post-war Poland, terra incognita. The visions are so compelling that readers not only willingly suspend their belief, they lean into the text and beg for more. The setting and characters are so clearly defined that readers will be unable to turn away. The first few sentences at first seem a reasonable depiction of post-war Warsaw. One evocative sentence warns readers that this is not quite reality. Mountains of rubble, still nurturing the dead like bulbs, ready to sprout as the spring weather warmed, clog the streets. Soon Barker stuns readers when he depicts a cup and ball game with a baby's head as the ball. That was insane. Insane. The first character, only known as the thief, wanders through the rubble of Warsaw, searching for Mamulyan, a gambler who never loses. The thief is in love with the prospect of testing his skills against the famed gambler. Out of desolation and devastation of Warsaw appears a highly symbolic, magnificent tree in full bloom. It anoints the gambler with a rain of white, sweet-smelling petals. Readers know he will soon meet the gambler. A woman whose lips have been sliced off leads the thief to Mamulyan, who renames the thief as Pilgrim, thus tying the flowering tree and the pilgrim together in a nod to Dante's Pilgrim's Progress. The thief yields to temptation and sits to play. In Part 2, readers wake up in a modern era, no doubt longing for the haunting visions of Part 1. A new thief, a prisoner, Marty Strauss, is offered a vague job opportunity by Mr. Toy. Toy's employer, Mr. Whitehead, needs a personal bodyguard. Why? An adept reader will certainly connect Whitehead's name with the magical tree of white blossoms. Whitehead's, need to look at it better. Strauss is chosen for the position. With an early release from prison, he, a new program, enters the lair of the mysterious Mr. Whitehead. It is Whitehead. Okay, never mind. I thought it was. Strauss has entered a strange world that is almost as bizarre as the previous version of Warsaw. The story that unfolds is complex, dark, and twisted, but somehow wholly believable. The mystery, danger, and gore climb as the characters, and all the plot lines come together for a magnificent revenge debacle. But it does not end there. It could be said that the most stunning aspect of this novel is Mr. Barker's ability to manipulate the English language. Readers will find themselves rereading sentences enthralled by their sheer beauty, by their ability to say so much so economically. There are no gratuitous info dumps. Every sentence propels the plot fluidly, precisely, and meaningfully. There you go. And then, of course, I think most people have read this one, or the process of reading is the Books of Blood. And I don't know, a lot of people are in the process or have read this. There are a series of horror fiction collections written by the British author, of course, Clive Barker. Excuse me. Okay, in Volume 1, Clive Barker is the possessor of one of horror's most imaginative and limitless minds. His sadistic perception of terror has sent chills down the spines of readers for decades, and his works of fiction refuse to depart the memory. Monumental or even profound would be a fitting moniker for the legend, who initially gathered a cult following with his absolutely terrifying series, Books of Blood. To date, 6 installments have been released, and in honor of a living legend, we're going to go with Volume 1 right now. Barker's intricate storytelling rivals, if not surpasses, the best in the business. He delivers his tales in near poetic prose. Becoming completely entangled in the man's stories feels effortless, so that if you pick up a novel written by Clive, it isn't likely to put down until you've read the final sentence. Volume 1 launches with an extremely brief tale of an oversexed greedy schemer who will do anything to create the idea he is indeed a powerful specimen. Marketed as a medium of sorts, this gentleman claims to hold a direct connection with the deceased, a connection that enables spirits past to express their thoughts through his own hand. But Simon McNeil, our supposed ghost whisperer, is a fraud, and his journey into number 65 Tullington Place is not destined to grant him a platform for grand illusion. You see, those of the spirit world aren't keen on the idea of being exploited, and this young fool is about to learn the bloody, violent way that some doors should remain closed forever. The Book of Blood kind of feels more introductory piece than actual story. It's twisted in every sense of the word and tremendously rewarding. Barker offers a moral here, albeit shrouded in petrifying fear, and it is extremely tough to miss. Our characters are few but well illustrated, and McNeil's final demise is a welcome slice of humble pie, but kind of extreme in lesson. Another top-notch offering from Volume 1 is the Book of Blood's immediate successor, The Midnight Meat Train, of course, which earned a long overdue screen transfer in 2008. The Midnight Meat Train serves as little more than a feeding den for age-old monsters. What did they eat? Humans, of course. So who doesn't know the Midnight Meat Train? Good Lord. The Midnight Meat Train should rank at the top of your discussion pool. The story is frantic, relentless in its violence, and extremely graphic in all its bloody nature. Barker manages to turn the subway system into a functioning hell, and he does so elegantly. Crafted storytelling that should impress all fans of the genre. So, Volume 1. The Pig Blood Blues. It's a mortifying read that not only offers a sublime twist, but squeezes the PC train until little more than bloody tissue cascades from a clenched fist. Perhaps the most taboo tale to be featured in this collection, Pig Blood Blues neglects all care for personal feelings or reader sensitivity. Barker gives it his all, pulling not a single punch and mixing a wicked blend of subgenre frights and placing a strong focus on the supernatural as well as the monstrous. Kind of a quick overview of this. A former man of the law takes a job at a remarkably strict boarding school, but rumors of ghosts lurking the grounds and children gone missing lead our would-be hero to a stable where one atrocious animal awaits more than typical grub. Betrayal and palpable evil live within this tale, and at the heart of the darkness rests a creature in the pig pen. One's best for survival is to avoid the animal's feeding grounds at all costs. But can a logical mind deny the call of curiosity? We just talked about 3 of the 6 stories. Rest assured, there isn't a weak effort to be extricated in the first volume of Books of Blood. This is a fictional masterpiece and the springboard for one of the best collections of horror to ever hit the market. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to get into Volume 2. Some of those are crazy, aren't they? Okay. Books of Blood 2. If there ever was a immediate sequel to a novel that fit perfectly into the box of continuity, it's Clive Barker's Books of Blood Volume 2. The second installment in this series picks up right where the last one left off, blending mind and numbing psychological scares with hideous creatures few possess the imagination to conceive. Quite honestly, it feels like a fantastic extension of the first B.O.B., and I love that. There's no need to fix what isn't broken. Book 2 features 5 new tales that shock, nauseate, and manifest a feeling of bona fide dread. In fact, speaking of dread, one of the tales affixed here dons that exact title, and it's one of the most disturbing efforts to grace this body of work. Dread tells a tale of ultimate manipulation, narcissism, and grand intellect. When Steve finds himself ensnared by the sublime intelligence and legit madness of Quaid, his world is turned upside down, philosophy be gone. The story is a character study in fear or dread. We won't jump into specifics, but I will tell you this. Quaid is a man out to force others to face their fears. Terror drives him, and he yearns to know what makes others tick. His insatiable curiosity leads to some sickening torture that works a mean nerve in readers. This story made it to film in 2009, and if you've seen it and enjoyed it, I beseech you to read the story. It's infinitely more frightening and differs on numerous levels. The film feels an embarrassment when compared to the tale. Another key standout in the second volume of horrifying fiction is Hell's Event, a story that pits the future of mankind against the unthinkable grotesqueries of hell. This piece of work covers numerous angles from self-determination to sacrifice, and even dips its feet into the world of politics. However, what helps makes Hell's Event so primitive is the fact that the future of the world we know lies in a simple foot race. Should man emerge victorious, the legions of hell will be forced to wait another century to attempt its claim of Mother Earth. Should man fall short of the finish line, allowing the demons who wear human skin in unbelievably convincing fashion, it's sayonara to all that we know. Barker keeps his tale moving about as fast as the entrance of the race, yet he manages to squeeze some terrific character development into a story. By all means, probably shouldn't have the time to manifest a bond between reader and character, but they are indeed created. You feel for the poor saps in this race, and I mentally urged our protagonists on, willing them toward the finish line, as though a victory may save the very world we live in now, right? The third tale I'd like to talk about is the paranoia piece, The Skins of the Fathers. Disguised by gargantuan monsters and a harrowing backstory, this is a piece of art that really does fall back on the insecurities of man. The fear of the unknown, vengeance, and as I've stated, pure paranoia. Perhaps the most intricate of the works you'll find in Volume 2, The Skins of the Fathers utilizes a multi-layered approach to a rather basic concept. Monsters aren't strangers to Welcome Arizona, but they haven't taken on somewhat of a mythical aura. Few have seen them ever, although they've left an irrefutable mark on Welcome. A wonderful swing from present day to years' distance brings the story together seamlessly. Welcome's inhabitants are illustrated wonderfully, but the core conflict separates itself from singular identities, and leaves readers attempting to take in numerous conflicts. all which feels so important that it's impossible to cruise through a page of the story. It'll grab you and won't let you go. I think, in my own opinion, Barker's Books of Blood Volume 2 is genius. There's not much of a shocker given Clive's consistently gripping tropes. Junior! That is my cat being a jerk. It must be said all the same. Everything I have read from Barker captivates me. And I'm honored being given the chance to read his work. He's always brilliant, and I don't place major emphasis on the other two tales in this collection. Jacqueline S., Her Will and Testimony. It's a great guide to the type of woman you don't want to encounter, okay? And New Murders in the Rue Morgue. It makes for the perfect closing note of a profound collection. Believe me when I tell you they're memorable works that ricochet off the mind's walls long after you've read them. And anybody who has read these books knows this. He's a genius. He really is. He's just. Okay. Of course, you have the Hellbound Heart, Cabal. And I don't think 3 is done yet, is it? Okay. We have entered the world of the worlds, different worlds that both Brian Lumley and Clive Barker have brilliantly written about. You have parallel universes in Brian Lumleys Necroscope series. You have Clive Barker's imagination and brilliant mind, and the world of Clive Barker is almost unimaginable, but you believe that this could happen. He is that brilliant of a writer. You're immersed into these worlds. You have, of course, Brian Lumley's parallel universes, go through a portal, and you have the world of the Wham theory. In Clive Barker's, you go to several unimaginable worlds. Both are brilliant in their own way. So I definitely recommend these. Oh yeah, Volume 3. We're going to talk about Son of Celluloid, which is kind of strange. It's about an escaped convict dies behind a film screen. Over the years, a cancerous tumor gains sentience from the strong emotions of the cinema's audience and torments a few people that remained after a show. The sole survivor of the massacre is seen sometime later, having tracked down the murderous entity, which was roaming the country after possessing the body of a young girl, unaccounted for after the events. She covers the creature with acid, killing it completely. Ooh, that's just gross, I thought. Rawhead Rex, of course, we all know. An ancient malevolent monster magically imprisoned underground is accidentally awakened in a village in Kent. Rawhead, a 9-foot humanoid with a huge toothed head, goes on a rampage, killing and eating several townsfolk. Can't do that. He corrupts a local verger who surrenders to the violent, depraved impulses that Rawhead represents, and who helps the monster slay the Vicar Coot. Rawhead sets the village alight and is eventually overcome by Ron Milton, father of one of Rawhead's victims. He uses a talisman to stall the beast until he is overrun by a mob of enraged villagers. The talisman depicts a pregnant woman, Rawhead's antithesis, and the only thing he fears. It kind of has a structure similar to Alien or The Thing from Another World. But the setting itself is disturbing. This little rural place. And of course, turned into the film Rawhead Rex in 1986. Barker has disowned this film despite having written the screenplay for it as well. Apparently he didn't quite like it. Okay. Confessions of a pornographers, in parentheses, shroud. Ronnie is a straight-laced Catholic man who is set up to look like the king of pornography cartel. He kills some of his enemies, but is murdered by their cohorts. He awakens as a ghost. He possesses the shroud that covers his body in the morgue, and in shape of the shroud takes revenge on the rest of his enemies. In a gory finale, he enters the mouth of the man responsible for his ordeal and turns him inside out. Woo! Great! The story was written as a black comedy revolving around the visual gag of a real ghost looking like someone wearing a bedsheet over his or her head, although it's extreme violence, but yeah, you gotta love it. Human Remains is another good one. This is a young gay prostitute is hired by an archaeologist, and during the course of the night he stumbles into the bathroom to discover a Romanesque statue of a man lying in the bath. Over the next few weeks, he has the sense of being haunted by a doppelganger. At the same time, his mind and body transforms. He becomes cold and lifeless, no longer needing to eat or sleep. He finally discovers his doppelganger, the statue from the bath, at his father's grave, crying in sorrow as he is unmoved. It becomes clear that the doppelganger has become more convincing as a human than he is, and he wanders away, allowing it to continue living in his persona. Volume 4, you have The Inhuman Condition, and this is about a young man named Carney, and his friends beat up a vagrant for fun. Carney steals a strange knotted piece of string he finds on the vagrant. A keen fan of puzzles, Carney undoes the knots that evening. Not knowing that in doing so, he is releasing a succession of demons who proceed, of course, to kill off his friends. The demons seem progressively more advanced, appearing to evolve with each knot. When he realizes what he has done, Carney has to seek out the vagrant for help. No kidding. Revelations. A woman named Virginia is unwilling taken on a tour of the U.S. by her unfeeling husband, a preacher named John Geyer. They stay at a motel which is visited by the ghosts of Buck and Sadie, a married couple who stayed there, in the same room 30 years ago. Sadie murdered Buck and was subsequently put to death for the murder. Buck and Sadie find that Virginia has the ability to both see them and hear them. Scuffle ensues when John discovers her driver Earl has been giving Virginia pills to help her deal with anxiety issues. While looking for Earl to confront him about the pills, John finds the married driver in bed with the daughter of the motel owner, Laura May. Virginia ends up getting her hands on the same murder weapon used by Sadie 30 years prior, which Laura May has kept as a souvenir. Virginia uses the gun to try to kill Buck's ghost, who managed partial materialization, in order to attempt to rape her, but the bullet goes through him and finds its way into John's throat, killing him. Virginia contemplates suicide, but Sadie's ghost advises her to plead insanity. While being taken by the local sheriff, someone asks her why she did it. Virginia answers, "The devil made me do it," whilst gazing at the moon with the craziest smile she can muster. Down Satan. It's one of the short stories. It relates the tale of a wealthy middle-aged businessman, Gregorius, who becomes depressed when he believes God's has deserted him. and he comes up with a plan to build a hell on earth to summon Satan, believing that God will then sweep him out of Satan's clutches and into his heavenly fold. In his vast satanic cathedral, Gregorius soon loses sight of his original intention, and he is captured after torturing hundreds of people to death in the well-equipped torture chambers. It is deliberately left ambiguous whether Gregorius went insane, or if he really did succeed in tempting Satan into his residence in his own personal hell. It is up to you. Volume 5, published in the United States as In the Flesh. You have The Forbidden Madonna. A man named Jerry is trying to talk a local shady businessman into financing the redevelopment of an old swimming pool complex. However, the pool has some mysterious inhabitants in the form of nude teenage girls who flee should Jerry or his would-be financial backer encounter them. A swimming pool in the center is unlike the other pools in the building, in that it is full. When it's full, it glows with a strange light and appears to be inhabited by some misshapen life form. Curiosity leads Jerry to return to the place, which somehow causes him to wake up one morning to see he has been transformed into a woman. Ooh, how do you guys feel about that, I wonder? In the Flesh. A prison inmate named Clive gets a new cellmate, a mysterious young man called Billy, who admits he committed the crime with the sole intention of coming to this particular prison. Billy believes he has been summoned there by his grandfather, a supposedly powerful sorcerer who was buried in the prison after execution for murder years before. Billy's efforts to summon his grandfather, Tate's spirit, cause Cleve to be haunted by dreams in which he travels to a form of purgatory for murderers, where killers are obliged to spend some portion of their afterlife in a replica of the scene of their crime. In the end, Billy vanishes from his cell. His grandfather's coffin is exhumed and found to contain Billy, curled up next to his grandfather's corpse. Once relieved, Cleve finds that his travels to the murderer's purgatory have left him with the ability to hear others' people's thoughts, as long as they revolve around killing people. He becomes disillusioned with humanity and becomes a heroin addict to suppress his newfound powers. Cleve later commits a murder himself to feed his habit and is shot dead. He spends an indeterminate amount of time in his own murderer's purgatory before discovering that individuals can escape via reincarnation. Volume 6, several of these stories are also published in Cabal. House Boilers Bleed is one. Several European mercenaries led by a cold-hearted man named Locke have brought land in the jungles of South America that is inhabited by a tribe of Amazonian natives. When the tribe refuses to leave, one of Locke's cohorts impulsively shoots one of them accidentally. Oops. The elder of the tribe puts a curse on the men, which one by one strike themselves down with a gruesome condition that makes their bodies incredibly delicate. A mote of dust can slice their skin open. The soles of their feet crack when they stand. After his men die off, Locke goes back to the tribe to beg for forgiveness. However, when he gets there, the tribe has been massacred by some of his other colleagues. Locke begins to suffer the symptoms of the deadly curse just as he realized there is no way of having it removed. And how about Twilight at the Towers? A British spy named Ballard, stationed in Berlin, meets a KGB counterpart named Marinenko. After their meeting, Marinenko disappears. As Ballard investigates, he witnesses a vicious mauling, which in turn leads him to discover that he and Marinenko are both werewolves, trained by each agency to defeat the other. Both governments raid their meeting place, causing Marinenko to transform fully. Ballard runs and wakes up in a fellow operative house. Ballard's rival, Suckling, arrives and kills the agent, only to be killed by the transformed Ballard. Ballard seeks Marinenko and finds himself reading to a group of werewolves from the Holy Bible. The passages he's chosen strongly imply that Marinenko believes God wants him to rule over humankind. Ooh! And, of course, on Jerusalem Street, which is a postscript, Only included in some UK editions of the Books of Blood on Jerusalem Street is a sequel to the Book of Blood from Volume 1, told as a sort of wraparound tale. Wybird is hired to obtain the Book of Blood for a collector. He captures and skins Simon McNeil. Later, the skin starts to bleed and won't stop, and Wybird eventually drowns. He ends up on the highways of the dead, where he tells his story. And there you go. You can't beat that, can you? No way. No way. So there you have it. The vivid, graphic imagination of Clive Barker. And each in their own way are brilliant authors. I love the idea of the sci-fi, horror, vampire, everything rolled into one with Brian Lumley, and the journey of Harry, the Necroscope, and of this alternate universe. And of course, Clive Barker, what doesn't he bring to the table? I mean, what can you say after that? He's a genius. And what else can you say about him? I mean, that says it all right there. So I'm glad you were able to join me tonight. I hope you enjoyed the discussion on the Necroscope series, and of course, the Books of Blood by Clive Barker. Brilliant. And some of them are downright, it's like, whoa, crazy stuff. So, again, I hope you enjoyed it. And, of course, you're listening to KBLP LLC, brought to you by King's Cannabiz. Okay, if there's an author you want to hear about or a genre, please let me know. You can get a hold of me on the KBLP LLC Facebook page, and let me know what you want to hear. Okay? Be glad to. Trying to think we're good. Tomorrow, join Michelle and myself for The Walking Dead Planet. We've got 2 episodes to talk about. Thank you again, Michelle, for taking it up while I was down. Again, everybody, please adhere to the CDC guidelines, okay? I don't know where I picked it up. We went to my granddaughter's birthday. She wanted to go to McDonald's with her girlfriend and then go to the park afterwards. Well, my daughter, her husband, and I went to McDonald's with them on Saturday the 7th. By the 9th, we were all down with the crap. I was in bed all week. I was in the hospital over the weekend. Just please take care. Wash your hands. And I was really getting good at it with the wipes and the washing the hands. But for some reason, we all caught it. Crazy stuff. Of course, we are known as Vacation Land USA. And we have fishermen coming in already. I think it's going to be... I'm not sure if it's a walleye or bass tournament coming up. And they're already coming in from out of state. So, Portland is unlike any place you've ever seen. It's not like Cleveland where you're shut down. I don't think they even know we're supposed to be shut down as far as I know. I have no idea what they think. But anyway, could have been anybody in that McDonald's, and that's where we picked it up. We're all down with it. So, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Take care of your family, your friends. Whatever you can do. Okay? Stay safe. Stay well. And Michelle and I will be back tomorrow with Walking Dead Planet. I'll be back Friday with Hollywood Review. And that probably, I don't know, I think we're going to talk about some movies after that. They're holding off on a lot of movies that were supposed to be coming out. So we shall see what happens with that. Saturday, I think, join me with Encounters. As long as I'm feeling good, I'll be here. So it's going to be my bedtime. And I thank everyone for joining me. Thank you for being patient with everything. And hope you enjoyed the Book Corner. Join me next time on the Book Corner 2 weeks from now. Y'all have a great night. Peace out, y'all.